On SWIFT system, I'm curious, when the United States government and Western allies kind of said we were going to use the SWIFT system to provide some penalties to Russia, is there a concern that you might have at SWIFT that maybe Russia, China, a few other countries, Iran, might say, let's form our own SWIFT system. We don't need the West SWIFT system. We'll have our own. And is that a realistic concern you have or not really?
Okay, so going back to 3 years ago, indeed, when SWIFT was, it's an understatement, probably more in the spotlight more than we've ever been before. I can tell you that I think by now everybody knows what SWIFT is. After those events, I can tell you that my kids now know what I do. But going back to your point, I think two angles to it. One is that as any action, there is a reaction. And while we had to comply with those decisions, of course, being subject to the EU law, there was a paper actually released this morning by the WEF that explains pretty well what one of these reactions is, or actually the rising risks of financial fragmentation that can occur linked to some of these decisions. So to your question about the alternatives, so maybe a step back about the SWIFT system, or the SWIFT ecosystem. So SWIFT today connects essentially 11,500 institutions across 200 countries, 4 billion accounts in 150 currencies, essentially carrying the GDP of the world every 2 to 3 days. So that's what SWIFT is. But it's important to note that there are a multiplicity of systems that are interconnected to SWIFT. Domestic market infrastructures, payment systems, regional groupings, multi-regional. So these have always existed and will continue to exist, like you were mentioning. But what is important is to make sure that at the end we're embracing a future where there's going to be more ways to move value, not fewer. People will demand more choices, not less. And that's why it is essential to continue to act on this interoperability, regardless of the platform, form of value, or technology.
So in any given day, how much money are you moving around the world? Is it, I should say?
Roughly 20 trillion a day.
How much?
20 trillion. 20
trillion a day. Okay. So if I had computer skills, which I don't, and I knew how to do hacking, which I don't, why would I not want to be able to figure out how to hack the SWIFT system? Because you got $20 trillion moving around the world. If you could hack in there, maybe some of that could come to me. So is that something you're worried about?
Well, like any infrastructure, there are two paramount objectives that we have in terms of running a systemically critical infrastructure. One is to secure our platform, our infrastructure, which I can tell you is pretty much the top priority, not only for SWIFT, but companies like MasterCard, Visa, and market infrastructure around the world. But it's also around securing the endpoints in that infrastructure. So you may have followed years ago, 9 years ago now, there were a particular incident that involved an infrastructure from one of the users of SWIFT that was compromised, and that triggered a whole host of investments, not just on the platform itself, but the endpoint security. And we're at a point now where SWIFT and many of the infrastructures present here this week, there is not just a prevention method to protect these platforms, but also a detection method linked to leveraging AI technologies and so forth to detect, protect, and prevent these issues from happening.
Okay. So on MasterCard or your competitors,